I think it's funny how the laws that Trump strengthened during his administration against espionage and spying and stuff is being pretty much used against him, and now he's speaking out against that. It's just quite hilarious.
The Espionage Act has been used to go after traitors and spies. It has nothing to do with a former president legally keeping his own documents.
No, you weren't legally allowed to have those, which is why you tried to destroy the documents when people were coming to uh, reacquire them. This is kind of hilarious. But also, the Espionage Act is used uh, in cases where people steal documents that they're not supposed to have.
As president, the law that applies to this case is not the Espionage Act, but very simply the Presidential Records Act, which is not even mentioned in this ridiculous 44-page indictment. Under the Presidential Records Act, which is civil, not criminal, I had every right to have these documents.
No, you did not. Again, which is why you're being charged for stealing the document.
Crucial legal precedent is laid out in the most important case ever on this subject, known as the Clinton Socks case. You know what that means?
It's hilarious how somebody yelled "lock her up" when it's going to be Trump that gets locked up.
After leaving the White House, Bill Clinton kept 79 audio tapes in his sock drawer. They included
Where's the evidence of this? Because this isn't the first time I've heard this, yet no right-winger can actually give evidence.
discussions of U.S. military involvement in Haiti, discussions of U.S. foreign policy, both defense and offense, against Cuba, recordings of President Clinton's conversations with all of the many foreign leaders at the time. Think of that.
Okay, prove it, though. All he does is make a bunch of claims, and because he knows his base hates these people, that his base will just automatically believe it because they're nothing but sheep.
Sensitive facts about trade negotiations taken from presidential briefings, discussions with the Secretary of State about conflict in Bosnia, and much, much more. Very big stuff. Not only was Bill Clinton never even considered for criminal prosecution based on the tapes he took, but when he was sued for them, he won the case. Judge Amy Berman Jackson's decision states, under the statutory scheme established by the Presidential Records Act, the decision to segregate personal materials from presidential records is made by the president during the president's term and in the president's sole discretion. You're surprised to hear that, aren't you?
Man, his mouth is like the way he speaks, his mouth looks so small compared to how big his face is, and it's just so weird at times.
Any normal administration, even an opposing one, would consider that to be the end, but not the corrupt Biden administration. The SOX decision, as it's known, also states, quote, the National Archives and Records Administration, or NARA, does not have the authority to designate material as presidential records. They don't have the authority.
Yeah, and they do. And presidents don't just have the authority to declassify any document that they want, just with a thought. They gotta go through a process of getting documents declassified, which is why it takes a while for classified documents to become declassified.
NARA does not have the tapes in question, and NARA lacks any right, duty, or means to seize control of them. This is law. The president enjoys unconstrained authority to make decisions regarding the disposal of documents. That's unconstrained.
No, the president doesn't have unlimited power when it comes to documents. Trump is just proving how little he actually knows about the government whatsoever. I mean, yeah, the president can request for various documents to be declassified, but that doesn't mean the president can just be like, yeah, I want this, this, and this declassified, put it out to the public. No, it doesn't work that way.
To make that decision. Neither the archivist nor Congress has the authority to veto the president's decision. The Presidential Records Act does not confer any mandatory or even discretionary authority on the archivist to classify records. Under the statute, this response
I just find it hilarious how Trump is, he just pretends to know the government and laws, and all he does is just make up stuff that makes it so that he can do whatever he wants.
responsibility is left solely to the President of the United States. Think of that. That's the decision. Think of that. Now, just think of that. In other words, whatever documents a president decides to take with him, he has the right to do so. It's an absolute right. This
It's an absolute right. No, it's not. It's not an absolute right. And that is why you're being charged and you're gonna go to jail for it.
is the law. And that is something that people have now seen, and it couldn't be more clear. They ought to drop this case immediately because they're destroying the country. And this is why no other president, even those who kept far more documents than I, has ever been even investigated, let alone charged with a crime. Because the sham indictment put forward by the Biden administration included staged photographs of boxes at Mar-a-Lago, many people have asked me why.
Hilarious. He's claiming those were all staged. Wow. Yeah. The government hates Trump so much that they're going to stage him stealing documents when he's on record talking about documents that he stole.
I had these boxes. Why did you want them? The answer, in addition to having every right under the Presidential Records Act, is that these boxes were containing all types of personal belongings, many, many things, shirts and shoes and everything. As can be seen in the picture,
So he had shirts and shoes mixed in with a bunch of classified documents. That is just kind of weird.
where someone, not me, I wonder who it might have been, dumped one of the very neatly arranged boxes all over the floor. They were full of newspapers, press clippings, thousands of pictures, thousands and thousands of White House pictures. The White House photographers, some are with us today. They took so many pictures, and we saved all of them, and they were in those boxes.
Yeah, I bet he had thousands of pictures by the White House photographers in his boxes. Yeah, what a lie.
Clothing, memorabilia, and much, much more. I hadn't had a chance to go through all the boxes. It's a long, tedious job, takes a long time, which I was prepared to do, but I have a very busy life. I've had a very busy life. They make it more busy because you're always fighting.
Yeah, he is so busy having to fight against all the criminal charges he's being investigated for because he just can't stop committing crimes and lying.
And under the Sox decision, there seemed to be no rush. I wasn't in a rush because that decision was a law. The other picture that was so vile, you remember that one? It was angry and corrupt, was the photo staged by the FBI. And those that raided Mar-a-Lago, they were putting documents all over the floor. Remember that famous picture? All over, said confidential, said presidential, said all sorts of things.
Yeah, because the government gave the FBI a bunch of documents to spread around Mar-a-Lago in order to frame Trump. Yeah, that so happened without like anybody in Congress on the right like actually knowing about that happening, or what, they were just all in favor of it happening.
And it was supposed to be there like It was that way when they raided. It wasn't that way. They put them there, took the picture, and released it illegally to the press. They took my medical records, my passport, my birth certificate, and apologized. They even brought a safecracker. This is a professional safecracker they brought into Mar-a-Lago. And they broke into my safe, and you know what they found? Nothing. There was nothing there.
Well, yeah, that's what happens in a raid. They will check every inch that they can, and if it means, destroying stuff in order to, search it, they will do that. I mean, it happens all the time. Look at, various raids on, various, poor citizens and how their houses get destroyed in raids when you got police looking for stuff. Trump isn't special, but he wants to act like he's special because he's an ex-president and he's rich, so that means he should be treated in a different way compared to everybody else because, he's a blue-blooded person and everybody else are just, lowly peasants.
We've just been listening to former President Trump speak at Bedminster tonight. This was just 4 hours after being arraigned in South Florida in a federal courthouse where he was charged with several federal crimes. And for the first time, we are hearing what President Trump's defense may be in federal court. Again, he's not a lawyer, but at least he's telling us where he may be going with this. And his biggest defense so far, saying these were all his records, that they were his personal records. And if he's guilty of anything, it's just being in a rush, and that's not criminal. I want to turn to NBC legal analyst Danny Savalas, who joins our panel tonight here in this special report. Danny, for the first time, we're hearing from the president, and he's talking about President Clinton and a Sox case, which was very different than what we have in this indictment right here. Explain to our viewers.
Yeah, very different. It's called the Clinton-Sox case generally. What happened was Judicial Watch found out that President Bill Clinton had given a bunch of interviews, and he had kept the tapes of these interviews while he was president, apparently in his sock drawer. So what Judicial Watch wanted the court to do was order NARA, order the archives to go out there and go get these records. And the court concluded that NARA didn't have an obligation to affirmatively go out there and get the records. And in so ruling, Judge Jackson did say essentially, and I'm paraphrasing, that the president, if the president is able to determine what is a presidential record, it follows that he can also determine what is a personal record. So there is some support.
I mean, it's easy to tell what's a personal record and what's a presidential record. If it deals with the government and stuff like that, it's obviously a presidential record. I mean, if it's a matter of what the president has said to his advisors and stuff, and that needs to be confidential, then yeah, that's presidential record. But if he's just giving an interview to somebody on the news, well, that's personal.
For the idea that a president can decide what is presidential and what is personal.